Good evening, everybody. We're so glad that you're here. I'm Ms. Palmer. I'm the interim creative writing teacher here at CASA. I've been absolutely honored to work with the writers we're going to hear from tonight from the AM class. And if you're able to, come back tomorrow. We have our PM, our upperclassmen writers, performing tomorrow. So we're going to have some performances and then a break and then some more performances. Everybody sound good? Yes. Okay. Are we excited? Yes. We don't seem excited. Yes. I'm glad that you're able to make it here. That's the very important thing. They've been performing and practicing and getting really annoyed with performing and practicing and working on their pieces, and I'm excited to let you hear all of the hard work they've done in both the writing and the performance. So we are going to start with, the idea is it's going to be a bit of a journey. We're going to start with some more serious, more melancholy, more tumultuous pieces, and then after the break we're going to move to more calm or upbeat or whimsical pieces. So it's a bit of a movement from point A to point B, and we're glad that you're along. We're going to start with Davine Shearer and their piece, "The Boats Sway to the Beat of the Ocean."
The elites will eat the weak shall be enslaved. Mass-produced wars will come, and they will ravage and scavenge the men, leaving a higher women ratio. To what end? But the boats stay silent next to the shore, swaying to the beat of the ocean floor. They were captured by the merchants to trade for the white man goods. If the kings and queens could see these tragedies, could they forgive themselves? Would they rest easy, or would they lie awake, hoping someone would undo their weaving of the gun slave trade? Captain Philip or any other of this time will say they were right. We kept them fed, we kept them clean in their quarters. They even had the luxury of having a doctor. Who could ask for more? The boat stay silent, moving across the waves of the Atlantic. But this wasn't a luxury liner, salt water in their veins ready to burst, for the monkeys grew ill, for they were beaten, broken, and much worse. Even if the monkeys tried to create an uprising, the monkeys would be shot and traumatized. If they were dead, ears were cut for insurance money. The livestock would go back, being stacked on top of each other, where moonlight can't touch their eyes and morning sunlight will blind. Their skin is raw, scrubbed to the point of objection. For the women to be feminine and meek, their bones shall be broken under shackle and key. And the men will lose none as they dance and jump to the beat of a drum. All the monkeys have are their old folk songs, but soon they will be stripped away. Their culture ripped by white men for entertainment. Your clothes are replaced. Your appetite grows less every day. Ears constantly hearing something deranged. Stuck in a small cell, nowhere to roam. Unfamiliar land, nowhere to get home. I meant no way to get home. Learn fast that mass is on top, while the house slaves and field slaves will fight amongst themselves. All work and no play, the sun raising hell on your skin. The monkeys pick cotton, grow tobacco, and cultivate sugar cane too, so their master can live lavishly, while the monkeys get repaid in years of living. There is nowhere for the monkey to go. They must forget the things that made them. Freedom is a lie their old body told them. If they leave their shackles, the slave catcher will take them, drag them, or burn them. The Europeans are in charge. You work for them even in war. The monkey's only worth in life is raising their economic value, so rejoice, rejoice. That their freedom doesn't exist. Shall they be shackled to the man of faith? Rejoice, rejoice, the monkeys have given their last breath. Now finally, freedom awaits. Hell is finally gone, and paradise touches their skin.
Now performing "To My People" is Talea Gilliard.
Okay. To my black woman, it's been a while since I've seen you smile, especially for more than those lashes you hide behind. I mean, I get it, because it's being perfect is etched into your mind. Because without perfection, it's like everyone is blind. It's like what's perched up behind is more important than our grind and effort to be seen and heard. And when they do hear us, we're the angry black girl. Well, they're wrong. You're more than a slim waist and thick thighs. You're more than someone's plaything. Your goals can reach high as the sky. And who says you can't be angry because you're treated like second best? Who says you can't be bitter because you're valued as less than women of another color? I swear to God. Yes, there's white privilege, but there's light privilege too. The darker the woman, the more they give us the boot. At least Tupac like our sweet juice and deep root, but let's take a different perspective. To my black men, there's a huge difference between boys and men. Sagging your pants and disrespecting your female kin does not make you any more mature. Our children need fathers, or maybe you should learn some form of protection, because your women are raising your children with mental scars and discretion. In addition, boys, you are more than muscles who can play ball. Please realize that once they take that knee, because you took that fall, they won't need you anymore, and they'll drop you like they never needed you at all. I know our community schools are trash because God forbid the white men fund those. But regardless, you can't educate yourself with no will to know. We fight amongst ourselves, continuously shaming, finger pointing and blaming each other. Can't exactly band together when we can't stand one another. Starts with self-hate. The jealousy we feel and often deny is because we're insecure. Love yourselves and compliment your sister, because trust me, she's as insecure as you. Our own black men don't want us because the stigma of making it out means kissing up to another race. Oh, God. I have to start over. It was out of order. Can I start over? Okay. To my black woman, it's been a while since I've seen you smile, especially for more than those lashes you hide behind. I mean, I get it. Being perfect is etched into your mind, because without that perfection, it's like everyone is blind. It's like what's perched up behind is more important than our grind and effort to be seen and heard. And when they do hear us, we're the angry black girl, where they're wrong. You're more than a slim waist and thick thighs. You're more than someone's plaything. Your goals can reach high as the sky. And who says you can't be angry because you're treated like second best? Who says you can't be bitter when you're valued as less than women of another color? We fight amongst ourselves, continuously shaming, finger pointing and blaming each other. Can't exactly band together when we can't stand one another. But it all starts with self-hate. The jealousy we feel and often deny is because we're insecure. Love yourself and compliment your sister, because trust me, she's just as insecure as you. Our own black men don't want us because the stigma of making it out means kissing up to another race. Nothing is wrong with preference until you disrespect the woman your color ties you to. They want women who are taught to obey and keep them happy. Well, sorry, sweetheart, we weren't raised like that. We were raised to defend ourselves, because who else gonna do it? We've been through hell and high water just to see everyone else snoozing. Yes, there is white privilege, but there's light privilege too. The darker the woman, the more they give us the boot. At least Tupac liked dark sweet juice and deep root. But let's take a different perspective. To my black men, there is a huge difference between boys and men. Sagging your pants and disrespecting your female kin does not make you any more mature. Our children need fathers, or maybe you should learn some form of protection, because the women raise your children with mental scars and indiscretions. In addition, boys, you are more than muscles who can play ball. Please realize that once they take that knee, because you took that fall, they'll drop you like they never needed you at all. I know our community schools are trash because God forbid the white man funds those, but regardless, you can't educate yourself with no will to know. Put the guns down. I know he owes you some money, but he has a daughter at home who shouldn't see her daddy on the news singing another black man we've lost blues. Understand that drugs are not your way out. They won't do anything but dig you deeper. As I say this, I laugh because they say y'all chose this life. They say y'all chose to shoot each other over drugs. Well, how did the drugs get there? Because obviously they can't be driven. They can't be walked in, and they can't be dove, but they can't be flown in, but they can be flown in. And who do you know in the hood with a jet, helicopter, or plane? They set you up for failure before you even know your name. To my black people alike, you're better than that. You'll rise above. I know your mental health is crippling, and we don't speak on that. Just know, deep down, our community will always have your back. I know it's scary, when not only can you be killed by your own, but the people who serve and protect you could break into your home. Remember, we pledge allegiance to a flag that's killing our sons, daughters, mothers, and dads. Remember, no one is going to hand you a thing but hell, so what you do best and shine. The hate you give F's us all, so be conscious of the energy you expose. To our oppressors, I don't think you hate us, I think you hate yourselves. Just know we ain't never standing down. We built your cities, your capitals, your towns, and we could take them back with a slick and smooth sound. Or we could burn them down. Stop underestimating us just because we're brown.
Coming up next, we have Sophie Vecchia with 3.
Improvement, perfection, the strongest desires, they light me like fires, guiding my steps. My confidence building and value increasing till my face starts creasing, what will come next? Bones turning brittle, the skin starts to sag, I can no longer brag, my beauty's the past. Incredible talent gets dimmed through the years, to be shattered by tears and a love that won't last. Give me attention, admire my actions, so my satisfaction can bring me some rest. Lost and forgotten, no more an apostle, a shriveled up fossil, admired by none. Anxiety riddled, my mind will dissolve, the worst will devolve, I have nothing left.
Coming up next, we have Jealousy by Nicole Valera. And that will be read by Sophie Vecchia.
Jealousy is a wicked thing, isn't it? It causes your heart and soul to ache, to tread right on the edge of anger and sadness, making you feel like you're consumed by madness. It feeds off a desperate heart. It thrives on a wishing soul. You long for many things, materialistic, physical, emotional, mental. Yet as time passes, you realize something bad, awful, ghastly even. You will never have it, never have what you wish for, never have the happiness you seek. Why? Because you are not enough. You will never be, and it will always be that way. After all, there's a reason you don't have it, a reason you can't have it. Jealousy is a vile thing, isn't it? It's because you're not worthy. You never have been and never will be. And when you realize this, you snap, you shatter, you cry. Jealousy is a cruel thing, isn't it? And what's worse is that it'll always be a part of me. It's stupid and juvenile, unbecoming of someone like me, someone who deserves much less than what they have, someone who is nothing compared to the target of their jealousy, someone who should know their place as a nobody, someone who does know their place, whether they wanted to or not. I learned what I can ask for. I know what I'm entitled to. I know what I don't deserve. I'm aware of what I can expect, of what I should expect. Because I know I shouldn't feel this way, but I do. I know I shouldn't be bitter, but I am. I'm ashamed of how I feel. I'm saddened by my reality, and I'm scared to admit that about me. I want to explain, give someone the blame, but I have no claim to an innocent name, so I sit here in shame, alone, and most definitely not okay.
Next, we have A.K. Kapoor reading Ashes to Ashes.
Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, there goes the remnants of our former trust. As time goes on, this memory will fade. You and I will forget all the people we have swayed. Those old-timey bars with jukeboxes galore, all the good times should we just ignore. I stood upon that stage with my microphone in hand. You were behind as a washer, a venture I am yet to understand.
And next we will have Mother by Owen Trufanistock, which is read by Sophie Vecchia.
Deep down, Deanna had always hated her daughter. She only kept the baby because her parents had begged her to get an abortion. Now she was 23 and alone in the worn-down kitchen of the farmhouse she had tried to make into a home. In the corner, she sat at the table, the last flickering bulb in the swag lamp buzzing overhead, one fist clenching and unclenching the fabric of her work pants, the other holding the last smoldering butt of her last smoke. She grit her teeth while crushing out her cigarette as the voice of the little gremlin traveled down the stairs. That manager could go dig himself a hole for all she cared. She hadn't done anything wrong. She didn't deserve to be fired. So she laughed at a customer. So what? Her eyes burned, but she had not cried a single tear since her parents kicked her out. Upstairs, there was another high, off-pitch note, and Deanna clenched her fist with anger. Thinking of being kicked out brought back all the memories of her parents that she stowed away, like when her parents forced her to do a math competition or join the swim team. They only cared about their status with other families, so when their daughter got pregnant, even though she didn't really want the baby, she kept it just to make her family enraged. Everyone in town gossiped about the Smiths and their pregnant daughter. If she was honest, she loved the attention, but she still hated them for kicking her out. She stumbled to the fridge and grabbed another lager. Standing there, drunk and wobbling on her feet, she looked at the bug-eyed turtle refrigerator magnet her ex, Chris, had left her. Under all her anger, there was a brief bubble of sadness, but she pushed it back down, not wanting to cry at the moment. She couldn't stand to think how she drove him away, like she did every good thing that happened to her. The pregnancy might not have been planned, but she had loved Chris once, and he loved her back. He had stayed with her, after all. She'd been drinking when she crashed Chris's new car into a tree. He left the next day. He offered to take the child with him. Part of her wished he had. Her surroundings started getting hazy, and the singing from upstairs was louder than ever. The anger was boiling over the edge, the sadness wailing in the back of her mind like a fire alarm. This nightmare had to end sometime, right? There had to be something she could do to start all over. Maybe that's what she needed. Her parents were right after all. That baby should never have been born. Deanna glanced up at the ceiling and then stumbled up the stairs and into the bathroom. As she filled the tub, she thought about the new life that awaited her. All she needed to do was get rid of the one thing holding her back. When the bath was full, the time had come. She burst into the gremlin's room, grabbed her by the hair, and dragged her into the bathroom. Kate screamed in surprise and began to scratch and claw at her mother's hand. "What'd I do, Mama?" she spluttered. "Please, Mama." Deanna did not hear the pleas, and she did not feel the scratches on her wrists. Only focused on a free future, she picked up her daughter, threw her into the tub, and forced her head underwater. Suddenly, someone was racing up the stairs, and Chris stormed into the bathroom. "What the heck, Deanna?" He pushed her aside and pulled Kate from the tub. "I heard you got fired and came to see how you were doing," he said. "You've truly lost it. What were you thinking?" The trance broke, and the realization of what she'd just been trying to do came crashing in on her. She fell back against the wall and stared at the floor. What could she say? That she didn't like the singing? That she wanted a new life? Shame and guilt and hatred for herself and the world washed over her. She looked up at Chris, and she knew the tears were finally going to come. "You take her," she croaked. "I never wanted this. I can't do this." She pushed by him and ran outside. As she walked across the field into the night, the tears finally flowed. The next morning, Deanna Smith boarded a bus headed for Jacksonville, Florida. She was starting over, but she didn't feel free.
We're going to flip-flop the next two readings. So next we're going to have Amaranth of the Forest, read by Olivia Loudermilk.
This is an excerpt of a much larger short story. I didn't have time to read it all. The sun reflected the melting snow, creating shimmers of peach and lavender against the crisp white. Twittering shadows flew above the trees before landing into their frost-covered nests, shivering through their feathers but happy to be home. Spring had come at last. Amaranth lay soundly in the little burrow she had made for herself to keep warm. Spring it may have been, but the cold was bitter and would nip at her bare body. However, here she was warm, covered in rich earth and the sheddings from animals' fur. Here she was protected, for her mother's roots ran deep through her burrow. Her mother was a tree person. a tall sycamore with a trunk large enough to support at least 6 of Amaranth, smooth bark in shades of white and brown that weaved in and out of each other, branches that seemed to break out into little patterns. But by far Mother Sycamore's most distinct feature was her face. Several feet up her trunk, a pair of large eyes, a pointy nose, and a pair of lips that seldom opened unless to speak to Amaranth. Amaranth was small, with gangly arms and bony knees, brown matted hair that went down to her waist, and beneath the layer of dirt that covered her body were freckles. Though she was a human, she was no hoodling, as the tree folks call them. She was a child of the forest, and therefore she was happy. Amaranth, wake up. Spring has arrived, spoke Mother Sycamore gently, lowering a branch to nudge at her dirt-caked back through the burrow. She got nothing in return but a shudder and a tired groan as Amaranth rolled sleepily onto her side. Come now, Amaranth, she began again, a slight edge in her tone. You mustn't oversleep. It is time that you rise and meet the daylight like all other living things. Slowly Amaranth sat up. She shivered and rubbed the sleep from her large dark eyes. Still drowsy, she looked up at her mother. It never feels like spring at first, does it, Mamma? She asked while gazing down at the thin layer of snow still covering the forest floor. Indeed not, but it shall in time, for now we make haste for when it does. Go wake up, Lily, little one. Amaranth stood up and nodded before heading off to look for her mouse friend. As the morning went on, the snow began to melt, and the tree folk chattered amongst themselves about the green anniversary. Amaranth busied herself with gathering acorns to plant for once the day came, a green anniversary tradition she had come up with herself. As she placed all the little seeds into a pile, she heard a small squeaky voice from behind her. "Hello, Lily," said Amaranth without turning around. "Did you rest comfortably this winter?" "Oh, yes," squeaked Willy, scuttering up to Amaranth's hand. "Although I quite almost froze to death, I did. Winter is dreadful, do you not agree?" Amaranth shook her head. "Winter isn't dreadful. Winter is winter and happens for a reason. That's what my mamma says. Now would you like to help me?" "Of course. What can I do to help?" Amaranth was about to ask her to go to the other side of the woods to gather some stray leaves when her thought was interrupted by the sound of horse whinnying and boots hitting the forest floor. Lily scoffed. "Well, he's back early, foolish hoodling boy, disturbing the peace, stepping on tails. He'll find us at this rate. Follow me." With that, Lily took off, her little pink tail flying behind her. Amaranth struggled to get her bearings and follow her friend. "Lily, where did you go? Lily," Amaranth called, trying to run while not tripping over sticks and stepping on bugs. "Agnes," he shouted, an alarming sound that made Amaranth's skin crawl. "Oh no, Lily!" Amaranth quickly hid behind a tree. She'd find Lily later. There was that foreign noise again. His voice was getting louder, but Amaranth stayed put, just praying he would go away. The muffled footsteps grew louder and Amaranth's heart started pounding. He called one last time. The footsteps started again, getting softer as he walked away. Amaranth sighed and moved out from behind the tree and started walking back to find her friend. Almost as soon as she started to walk, there was an abrupt shot from behind her. Amaranth's face paled and she froze in her tracks. "What should I do? What should I do?" she thought as the distant calls grew louder and accompanied by the crunching of snow. Amaranth wanted to run away, but she couldn't. She was petrified. Never in her life had she felt this much panic. Her breath held in her throat, and she couldn't bring herself to blink. Louder and louder the footsteps grew until she could feel his breath above her. Another noise, louder and more stern this time. Amaranth looked at him in confusion. He was larger than her, and was clad in strange material that covered him from his neck to his feet. His mouth was moving. He was clearly trying to address her, but all she could hear were thoughtless foreign noises like nothing she had ever heard before. Overwhelmed, Amaranth began to back away. This creature was spewing so much nonsense and expecting her to respond. She just needed to get away from him. As soon as she attempted to duck away, he shouted something again, this time in a different tone, almost sounding worried, and latched onto her wrist. "Let go of me! Leave me alone!" she wanted to yell at him, but she couldn't. All Amaranth could do was thrash her gangly arms and legs and scream, something she'd never needed to do before. At last she escaped his grasp and bolted off. She ran as fast as her little legs could carry her, trying desperately to outpace the boy who was quickly catching up to her. The noises got faster and faster, almost sounding desperate, but Amaranth hardly noticed as she darted around trees that watched in shock and confusion. At last she made it back to her mother. Amaranth, what is the meaning of this? You have disrupted the peace. Amaranth looked down in shame, still trembling from the adrenaline. I'm sorry, Mama, but that one, the hoodling, held me back. I see, said Mother Sycamore. I don't understand. What would he want from me? What is he doing here? Why does he always come? Mother Sycamore lowered her gaze. I may have some idea of why he is here, but you must leave this to me, Amaranth. Fear not, for I have a feeling that this hoodling means no harm to you. Amaranth gave a small nod to her mother and glanced at the boy who was watching them, his jaw almost halfway into the snow. Let me do the talking, little one. I promise you that all will go back to the way it was. Amaranth gave Mother Sycamore a skeptical glance, but still nodded and walked off to the side and allowed her to confront the hoodling. She watched in anticipation as her mother spoke calmly in foreign grunts and noises to the hoodling, who responded stiffly, his eyes never leaving the ground and his clean fingers never leaving the bottom of the strange piece of cloth covering his torso. At last both felt silent, and Mother Sycamore once again turned to Amaranth. Amaranth, please do not be frightened when I tell you this. I will try to put it as plainly as I can, and do forgive me, for I am just a tree, and can hardly fathom matters such as these, but I shall offer you what comfort I can. Amaranth bit down on her bottom lip. Please just tell me what's happening. You're frightening me. Mother Sycamore sighed and looked down at her daughter. The hoodling, Henry, is your kin. Amaranth gasped. A sibling, then? How does he remember me? Do you recall the story I told you about the way that you came into this forest? Yes. Your mother, your true-blood mother, and Henry have been looking for you for years. They miss you, Amaranth. He says your mother has fallen ill and wishes to see you one final time before she passes on. Something welled within Amaranth. It was not love, she never knew the woman, but it was a want so strong that it rocked her. And then the realization that it could all be taken away washed over her. At this, Amaranth immediately burst into tears, throwing her arms around her mother's trunk. But she can't die, wailed Amaranth. She can't. She won't, my child. So long as you go to her with some of my leaves, they shall help her. Mother Sycamore slowly lowered one of her branches down to Amaranth's height. She gingerly plucked 4 leaves and then reached over to embrace her mother again. Once Amaranth let go, both of them turned to look at Henry, who was peering down awkwardly and fiddling with the hem of his cloak. Amaranth slowly walked over to him. Though her face was somber, she made perfect eye contact with him, took his hand in her small dirt-encrusted one, and very slowly nodded her head. Henry grinned at her. Thank you so much, Agnes. Thank you. Oh, yes. Here, you must wear something when going out into the village. He removed his cloak and placed it around her shoulders. It went down past her feet, and she grimaced at the feeling of foreign fabric against her skin, but soon smiled at the warmth it gave her. Shall we be off, then? Amaranth hesitated before running back to Mother Sycamore and flung her arms around her one final time. Mama, she whispered against her trunk. Amaranth, I will never be able to care for you as a true mother should. Go with these people. Start the family you deserve. Mingle with your true kin. Just always know that you may come back to me whenever you so feel, and that I love you more than the rain and the stars. Amaranth choked back a sob and at last let go. I love you too, Mama. And with that, she went off with Henry.
And the last piece we'll have before our intermission is A.J. Smith reading The Girl and the World.
All right. Open your eyes. The water is shallow. No need to worry. The red eyes opened, the clear bound. It blocked the walls, but one couch. The girl stood up with a gem on her head. It glowed and hovered with a noise. She took off and fell to the couch. Sat in the middle, money fell down like a waterfall. But soon, a family member and a friend joined, and the trio started to laugh and laugh until it was boring. Money, power, business. Oh, she's such a crybaby. Her body floated into a large salty ocean of tears. Hair was like dead seaweed flowing with no care. Then she heard a voice. What do I do if the person is crying? Just make them happy with money again. But money didn't make her happy. It made her bored. She felt isolated because of her career. Hungry and tired, but she still kept going. She refused to move. No more couch. The girl let her body fall into the deep ocean, looking up at the floating couch. Family and friends are still there. What is it that motivates them? Is it the benefits? Is it evilness? The people must decide. Are they going to live like this for the rest of their lives, or fall back to level 1? Those thoughts made her contemplate, until her body lifted and stood on water. Is she supposed to think on her own? No, kill her. Are you sure? Delete her now. The girl shook her head and opened her mouth. As one in a game, the character has no mind. They want to see beyond a clear wall of darkness and see others. Maybe free minds instead of selfish money and people who make them think. What if I want to be a boy? What if I want to be a dog, an artist, a teacher, a lesbian? A real person free to think with their own career, their own life. The red eyes open, the clear bounds, the open wall, but one girl. Successful as a pencil, she wrote the musical notes away. In a clear day, where money doesn't rain, but drizzles. Close your eyes. The stairs are open. No need to worry.
We're going to start with Existence by A.K. Kapoor.
How peculiar it is we exist. Is this a real universe? Yes, we insist. Is this the Matrix, a dream, or a computer? When will you quit believing yourself to be the silent martyr? Who are you, the child of, you silly goose? A blasted Jesus, peaceful Buddha, the unknown Allah? I declare a truce. You're just a person, not special, not ordinary. You're just you, with all your habits extraordinary.
Next, we have Oh, the Humanity by A.J. Smith. Kylie Ma is unfortunately not able to join us tonight. So we're going to have Oh, the Humanity by A.J. Smith.
All right. The world has so much evil to it. It frightens the metal bolts from my bones. The baseball bats with their curly twists, they all have this thing to them. It's rather hard to describe their activities, except laying in the desert and enjoying the heated breeze. There's a war happening just for the lands over the border. What has humanity come to, I must ask? It's sickening to my cords, zombified humans, of course, with their eyes glued to the motor cars from the 60s. The destruction left and right, my head isn't tight. They destroy the remaining sources like the animals they are. Why was I programmed for these clashing wars of the steampunk future? Why can't I be good for the eyes of the remaining public? I could do it, of course, but it just makes me turn my metal chip. Let's reverse the time of evil to good for once, and let's just gather around peacefully with our hands together and such. Ah, flipper gaggle, they all die, darn it, humans.
Next, we have Owen Trufanistock with The Bee and the Flea.
A flea and a bee. Flea's me, you see. Me and this bee up on a tree, looking out at the sea. The bee and me look at the sea with glee. The bee and the flea look at the sea with glee because it's free. On the tree, the flea and the bee have some tea. After tea, we have some brie.
Our next piece, Royal Haircut by Sophie Vecchia.
I've been cutting hair for 15 years. 15 years and not one unsatisfied customer. I know how to cut layers so that they perfectly frame someone's face. I can work magic with just a bobby pin and hairspray, and I can curl hair like no other. So why is it that today, of all days, my hands just won't stop shaking? Why is it that I've suddenly forgotten the secret trick for holding a curling iron so that I can create the perfect ringlet? Why is it that now, with the Queen of England sitting in my salon chair, I've completely forgotten how to do my job? I circle the queen, pulling and fussing with little strands as I go. I figured if I look intently enough at her head and pretend like I'm doing something important, she won't ask me why it's been 20 minutes and I still haven't done a single thing with her hair. Unfortunately, my strategy doesn't quite work. "Excuse me, madam," the queen says, turning her head to look at me. "I don't mean to sound impatient, but I have a dreadfully busy day ahead of me. I just need a simple trim, nothing too fancy." "Oh, of course," I say, forcing a smile onto my face. I reach over to my table and finally pick up the scissors. They usually fit perfectly in my hand, but today they feel like foreign apparatuses. I have to grab my wrist in order to stop my right hand from shaking. "Is everything all right?" the queen asks, her eyes flickering down to my still slightly quivering hand. "If you feel unwell—" "Oh no, I'm in tip-top shape," I reply, trying to make my smile a little bigger. The queen nods, although I can still see the doubt in her eyes. She sits back in the chair much more tense than before. I take a deep breath. "This is no big deal. It's just the Queen of England. No pressure, none at all. You can do this." With positive affirmations ringing in my head, I lift my shaking hand to the queen's white locks. I open my fingers ever so slightly so that the scissors grasp a piece of hair, then gather my courage and start to cut. As time goes on, my confidence grows. I trim and snip, sashaying around the queen in a flurry of follicles. Then I start to get cocky. I finesse the silver scissors through the queen locks. Small clicks fill the air as I cut faster and faster. All of a sudden, my scissors slice through an abnormally thick piece of hair with a slightly sickening crunch. The queen screams a hideous scream. I jump back, startled, and the sight that greets me is more terrifying than any botched haircut. I've seen plenty of terrible dye jobs and hundreds of bad cuts, messed up bangs, uneven layers, you name it, and I can almost guarantee I've seen it. This is worse than any of those. The Queen of England is grasping her head as blood gushes down her face. Her many security guards quickly jump into action. They pull me away from the chair and form a wall between us. Through the commotion, I catch a glimpse of the source of blood, and I nearly faint, though I'm not sure if it's from the copious amounts of blood or the knowledge of what I did. My mind starts running a mile a minute. I can't go to jail. It's one thing to just give the Queen of England a bad haircut. Sure, that could ruin my business, but this is much, much worse. What's the punishment for cutting off the Queen of England's ear?
And our next piece will be Gardening by Corey Salzgiver.
Gardening in the abyss of choice. There are tulips, roses, marigolds, and everything in between. And sometimes you can be scared to pick your favorite because there are thorns in your way. But with a good pair of garden gloves, you can pick any flower you want and water it. Keep it for your own and watch it flourish, making your own flower even more beautiful. Be careful. Sometimes you can mistake poison ivy for a beautiful bloom, leaving you to itch and ache. But once you find that wonderful blossom, you can see that you can't live without the wonder of watching it grow. What a beautiful thing.
Next we have Happiness by Nicole Valera, read by Sophie Vecchia.
It's so hard to focus on happiness, to think of the joys of the world, the little moments in life that can mean the universe. The dollar you found in your pocket, that play date with your niece, the laughter of a baby, the small things that make you happy. However, we don't notice them. We can't tell that's what they are, little sparks of happiness that we unintentionally ignore because they're not good enough to remember. Not as big as the feeling of despair or the feeling that we don't belong anywhere. Almost as though Atlas asked you to step in for him. Things that make you feel like everything is going amiss and that you only believed it was fine because of ignorant bliss. Yet those things aren't true. There are no greater feelings. They cannot be measured. Any attempt to scale what we feel will lessen the impact of its impression on us. It'll degrade those emotions. It will ensnare them in chains made of labels. It will dehumanize the very thing that makes us human. Rating how we feel means we'll classify our emotions, the thing that causes us to feel like we don't belong, the thing that makes us feel like we don't deserve to be here, or there, or anywhere. We feel alone because we don't perfectly fit the label. We aren't the piece needed in the puzzle. But the thing is, we are. We do belong. We do fit. We are needed. It may not be in that perfect box or 100-piece puzzle, but perhaps in something bigger, better, happier. Something that won't be blinded by the envy and sadness that we can't help but feel.
And to close our second set of readings for this evening, please welcome Olivia Loudermilk back up to read Fairies.
They say they aren't real. They say that it's high time I grew up. But on drowsy June nights they call to me, and out I go, barefoot in my nightgown, down to the pond where they're waiting for me. Fairies, thousands of them. They glow all the brighter when I greet them, little specks of color twinkling against the water, like the skyline of some far-off city. Although they never say a word, they usher me in closer and closer until I am knee-deep in the water and the hem of my nightgown is drenched. I never care, though. How can I? The only thing I ever notice in these euphoric moments is the beauty laying itself before me, enveloping me. I am in a different world with the fairies around, and if it were up to me, I would never leave. I have to, though. The sun starts to rise and their little lights fade. It's time to go home. After the last twinkling light bids me goodbye, I wade out of the pond, back down the path, past the bushes, over the fence, and into my room again. Until next June, my little friends. Until next June.
And with that ends our performance of the AM Creative Writers tonight. We appreciate everybody coming. Thank you so much for supporting us, and we look forward to seeing you at our end of year in June.